Hey, MidWeek Heights family, how are we? Welcome. We are glad that you made it. We're glad that you are here. Midweek's phenomenal because midweek is a chance. Obviously, it's in the middle of the week, hence midweek, but it's lined up to be a connection from the weekend to allow us to just kind of soak in a little further from where we've been, but at the same time, just recognize that it's maybe an encouragement moment. It's maybe a moment that kind of inspires us forward into the rest of our week and maybe connects some dots from the weekend to, man, I didn't see it that way, or I wouldn't have processed it that way. So we're excited. We get to lean in. If you've been with us on the weekends, you know we're in a series called The Way of the Apprentice. And The Way of the Apprentice really leans into this, that we are all in an apprenticeship to Jesus. Church words would be discipleship. Apprenticeship carries with it this idea of activity, that if you're an apprentice to anything and all you ever do is study it, but you never put it into action, you'll probably never become whatever you're leaning into. And so kind of the reality is that in this apprenticeship to Jesus, our heart, our goal is that we would look like, sound like, love like, a whole lot more like the person of Jesus. How do we do that? Well, we got to look at the life of Jesus and go, what did he care about? What did he do? And then take those things and practically, how do we put them into our life? And so if you're with us this past weekend, you know that Pastor Mike hit on Mary and Martha and that whole story. And I encourage you to go back, listen to the sermon, catch up on that side, but also just phenomenal look at what does it mean to be a servant, and what is discipleship, and how do those two fit together to be a disciple and a servant, and what does that look like, and how does that play out into our lives? And so we're going to lean into that, but we have a new friend, we have an old friend, and we have a new friend. And the old friend you might recognize, even though on my screen he's a little pixelated, but Mr. Owen, how are you today? Doing good?
Great. I'm doing great, John. I feel good that you went ahead and called me the old friend, because I don't know if Amanda would have felt good about being called the old friend. So I think you dodged a bullet right there.
Yeah, man, we're winning already. And then we have Amanda. Hi, Amanda. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. We're doing well. We're doing well. So, kind of set it up. You guys heard how we're set up for tonight. But Owen, quick question for you.
Oh no.
I heard that not only did you, like, this is an apology moment, maybe not an apology, that's a little strong. This is like confession time.
Oh no.
Okay, you ready?
Oh no. Here we go.
I was sitting with you yesterday in a space that was very relaxing. Some may call it a lounge. And you were telling me, remember some cans of beans that showed up? You remember that?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
And you were telling me that you met the person that gave you the beans.
Yes. Yeah. And so
and here's the confession time.
Okay.
Who had you accused of those beans?
Yeah. Okay. All right. I see how you turn this back into your favor. This was something that was working in my corner, because I finally, once and for all, got like definitive proof that I'm right on this whole beans for breakfast thing. Amanda, I don't know if you've been, Amanda's like, what's happening? So long story short, John and I had a midweek several weeks ago that went off the rails, and we ended up talking about breakfast food for most of the time, which is now why we have you here to help us, keep the conversation in a more adult level direction. But we had this whole thing, and John, being British, he's like, hey, you have beans for breakfast. And I was like, no, absolutely not. Well, someone caught wind of that conversation and sent me a case of beans from Amazon, these special like English breakfast Heinz beans.
Okay, that's the most impressive part of the whole thing. They got the right ones.
They did. I mean, they nailed it. And this whole time, the rest of the summer, I've thought that for sure, this was John pulling a prank on me. And instead discovered there is someone out there that confessed to sending me these beans. And not only that, this same person, who is now one of my all-time great friends, this same person made me a t-shirt this week, brought it to church this week. which is great. It's this, and it's like beans not for breakfast. It just says right across the front, and it's got this picture of the front of the beans, and I'm like, this is it. People understand. I feel validated. I feel like I got a tribe of people that understand these beans are not for breakfast. So, but I guess I do, you could turn that, John, into back all about you and the fact that I owe you an apology because you weren't the one that sent me those beans. And I was worried all summer that I had a weird stalker that knew where I lived, knew what I was talking about. No, it turned out it's an awesome guy. And it was fun because it was just another example of the ways we've been able to stay connected as a church family, have fun, even in the season where we weren't able all to be together. So it was pretty cool last Sunday to get that t-shirt. I might even wear it Sunday. I don't know. May wear that shirt Sunday just to further prove that I was right, which is...
If not Sunday, next midweek.
You know what? For sure. I'm bringing it on to next midweek. Yeah, for sure.
Well, and I think that's one of the beauties of that story is the connections that have been made in this season of COVID that I don't want to say wouldn't have been made, but have come into existence simply because of stuff like this. And so I just think an encouragement to that, and Amanda, as you step in today, like the encouragement is, man, it really is reaching and creating community. And it is something that, you look at the weekend, it's allowing another spot to lean into that weekend, which is pretty awesome. But Amanda, okay, so to you, because enough about beans and t-shirts and stalkers. So
she's like, why am I on this thing? Like, what are we doing here?
I know.
No, well, for the record, I would eat the baked beans for breakfast. So I'm on board with that.
Yes. Yes.
I do not eat typical breakfast foods at all. I don't French toast and things like that. So
no.
Winner.
Amanda, I regret having you on midweek.
Amanda's coming back again. That's all I know. Hey, okay, talking about beans. Okay, I was in Walmart the other day.
Oh no.
They have never seen them before. I almost got them, but they have buffalo wings. So it's like, or buffalo beans. So it's like buffalo wing sauce in your beans. And then they had another one that was like, what was it? It was like maple something or other. But I'm like, I'm all in, man. I'll give it a try. You got nothing to lose.
But please tell me you would not do the buffalo flavored beans for breakfast. Do you have any boundaries on what kind of beans can be featured in breakfast?
It depends. They might taste good with eggs.
They probably would taste good with eggs. Not if they actually have the buffalo wings. The sauce is okay, but leave the chicken.
Yeah, no wings in it, just the sauce. Sauce and beans. I don't know, maybe.
I feel like this is a perfect segue. This is a perfect segue into our conversation about discipleship, because you people need to be discipled on what breakfast foods are. So I feel like the way of the apprentice for you is just some time with people who know what's good for breakfast and can, lead you in that direction. So I think it's great. Just a proof that we need apprenticeships in our lives,
Oh man, we've lost the plot.
Yes, we have. But okay, so Amanda made a confession to us before we jumped on this conversation. And by the way, Amanda is very she's brave for jumping into this today. So we're just going to go ahead and make her regret it right off the bat. It's a true confession from Amanda. So Amanda made a confession that this Sunday was her first time ever taking notes on a sermon. So, and I think that's pretty cool. She didn't know she was going to be on here with us. And I think it speaks into just how meaningful and powerful, honestly, this whole idea of this apprenticeship with Jesus, becoming who God's made us to be through Jesus, through relationships. And so honestly, that says a lot. And I wonder, Amanda, like for you, based on, we'll get into learn more about you and and who you are and what you carry with us. But for you coming out of Sunday, this conversation about Mary and Martha and being not just a servant of God or servant of Jesus, but a disciple of Jesus is kind of where Mike was going with it. what about that resonates with you? And why were you taking notes so furiously this Sunday because in that topic?
One of the things that really stuck out to me was when he referenced Acts 4:13 and said that after being with Jesus, people around you should be able to recognize it. And that was just so profound to me because it's true. Like spending time in the Word and spending time with God, it should transform you to where other people actually see that in you. And so I just thought that was super cool that he pointed that out. And I was taking notes so fervently because we are doing the sermon notes in our life group, and I wanted to be prepared because I'm a preparer. That's what I do.
All right, so true confession time. Are you Team Martha or Team Mary?
Oh,
come on now, don't lie to us.
Okay, true confession is that, oh, this is going to sound so bad, but it depends on who I'm with. Because in our conversation in life group last night, it really had me thinking, depending on the people who may be in my home, I could be Martha if I'm trying to get out of the conversation and kind of be by myself, or I could really want to spend time with those people and I will ensure that I'm being Mary. So I love to host. I would say definitely I am typically more Martha, but I kind of felt a little convicted last night in that I think I pick and choose based on who the people are that I'm surrounded with. And I know that sounds awful.
No, that's actually, there's some insight there. I mean, where sometimes we stay busy because we just want to stay out of relationships or conversations, right? Like we just having something to do, keep moving, stay away from the people.
Or maybe even what's on in my life at the time. I maybe don't want to engage in conversation at that time. So maybe I will take a backseat to the conversation and just keep myself busy to stay out of it. Make it look like there's more to do than there is.
Yeah.
Oh, and what about you? Which team you on?
Oh man, I am. All right, since we're just all being true confessions here, I mean, I am definitely Team Martha, and that's one of the biggest, I guess, the points where God has to work on me literally every day. I have a phrase that I repeat to myself, I mean, at least 10 times a day. That's people over projects. I just say that it's like anytime I feel that tension, like I get interrupted, I mean, we kind of laugh, like where my desk is, like in the church office, like I never get any work done because I'm right by the front. People always come by, and I love, I hope you guys have picked up on, I love people. But it's like sometimes I'm just like, man, I'd love to finish one email today. Or man, I'd love to, and it's like, okay, close the laptop, there's people. And so I have to keep reminding myself, like, that's what God, has in front of me are people. Being with people, being with him is a higher priority than getting things done, but that's a constant tension for me for sure. So Mike's sermon kind of hit me right between the eyes for sure. What about you, John?
I think what's interesting for me is I've had to pull the story apart because I'm naturally like a doer. Like when I hit work, I hit work. But I think for me, it's by pulling the story apart, I mean, like Jesus talks about you're worried and upset about many things. Some translations says you're anxious, and anxious being like a separating apart of yourself, that you're dividing. And so I think for me, it's trying to capture the beauty in God made me to be a doer. So capturing the beauty in that at the same time, like going, man, if I'm worried and anxious and split and divided, that's where the problem comes in. Because you can be busy and be walking with Jesus, right? You can be busy and listening to the Holy Spirit as you go through it. The difference being, so we don't want to bash that side, but at the same time, like if what I'm busy with makes me anxious and divided, and like you say, I can't focus on what Jesus would if he was here, now I got a problem. And so I think for me, I probably lean naturally towards I'm busy. My problem is slowing down to make sure I'm still caring about the things that Jesus would care about. So,
yeah, that's a
although
great.
sitting at the feet of Jesus sounds good. We just go do that. So,
Definitely.
on a beach somewhere, can we do it? I think Jesus would be at the beach.
Yeah, I agree with that.
No, that's a great way to look
Amanda,
at it.
what's a little, like, maybe just a quick version to frame up who you are, like a little backstory on your life, family, that kind of stuff, just so that way people get to know you as well in this conversation.
Okay. Okay, quick version. Let's see. Up until probably 2 years ago or so, I would have said I'm a mom and I'm a wife and kind of defined myself as my duties in a way. But I am those things. I'm a mom to 3 boys. I have almost 21-year-old, a 15-year-old, and a 13-year-old. So I'm on my toes all the time. I am married to my 8th grade boyfriend.
Wow.
We've been married almost 19 years now. We had our son very, very young. Yeah, and I was a stay-at-home mom for a really long time, for about 10 years, and just entered the workforce like 5 years ago. And I think that's when I suddenly was like, oh gosh, who am I? Like I'm still a mom, but there's something else here too, and kind of went through this journey of kind of self-discovery and really putting time and effort into figuring out who I am as a person. So now I would say that I, in a very hysterical way, found myself in women's ministry as the women's ministry coordinator. And before I got that job, I had maybe one girlfriend. I was never the type of girl to have a bunch of girls around. I like to be very adventurous and do things that most girls don't like to do. And so what I am finding now is that I maybe just wasn't around the right women, because now I'm surrounded by a ton of them and I love them and they love me, and we have great conversations, and it's been amazing. So we were talking earlier about how God has a great sense of humor with me, and that definitely played into the whole thing of me getting my job here at Heights. So before that, I was working for a firearms distributor, and I loved that job, but it was not what I was made for.
Well, that's
so
oh, go ahead, John. I'm sorry. Go.
No, go. You go, Owen.
I was just about to say, I mean, you made that phrase, discovering what you were made for,
Mm-hmm.
which you're finding out that now. And you talked about how this season, being at Heights and being around these women, has really helped you figure that out, put some of those pieces together.
Mm-hmm.
So, if you're comfortable with it, can you rewind a little bit further and just talk about you and God and how Jesus became a part of who you are?
Yeah.
Leading you, and then how you've discovered yourself, through that over the years.
Yeah, for sure. So I cannot remember a time that I would not have called myself a Christian. I literally, from birth, my grandfather he was very heavily involved in church, and we always went on summer vacations with my grandparents. And I can remember they have this, like, oh gosh, I want to say it was like a Dodge camper van with like a big bed and sink and everything in it. And that's what we would travel in. And I can remember like sitting in that van and my grandpa telling me all the stories of the Bible and telling me about God and making sure that I had faith in Jesus Christ as my savior and praying the prayer with him, like literally as far back as my memory goes, and doing it repeatedly. Probably my entire childhood. I was a pretty rebellious teenager. And I kind of went my own way and did my own things. But even now, I can still remember, I always had a close relationship with my grandpa. And today, like, I hear things and learn things through different studies that I'm doing. And I'm like, oh gosh, grandpa told me that. And I just didn't listen to him because I was a stubborn teenager. And I would say most recently, probably when we moved from California to Arizona is probably the furthest that I had been from God for a really long time. And I found myself in a job that I loved, the work that I did, but just kind of like a toxic environment that I was around, and just everything kind of seemed to be falling apart. And I knew I just really had to figure out how to live at peace again. And I knew God was at the center of that. And so I actually have a vision board that I did. Gosh, I looked up the picture last night because I couldn't remember the date. It was January of 2019. So I got hired at Heights April, just after that, the April after that. And in the center of my vision board is the cross up on the hill from church. I like Googled pictures of local crosses, and that's the one that I ended up putting in the middle of my vision board. And so in this discovery of myself, I knew that I wanted to do something to help women. I knew that there was women that kind of were in the same position of me. Maybe they were stay-at-home moms for so long and then entered the workforce and just didn't even know who they were anymore. And because I have a very strong personality and kind of like to take charge of situations, I knew I needed to do something in some kind of leadership position. And so I don't know that I've told you this story, but I was actually sitting in church one Sunday, and I was praying, God, just reveal to me what I should be doing. I know I should be doing something with women. I know that I should be doing something in leadership. And literally the job popped up on the screen, that this position that I have now was open. And I remember just kind of laughing, like, okay, that's a funny joke. Like, that's not for me. And I didn't call. I waited probably that whole period that Kathy was looking for someone. I think there was like a 3-month period. I never called. And I kept looking for a job. And that was the only thing that kept popping up. And I kept praying about it. And then finally I'm like, well, maybe that is what I'm supposed to do. And so here I am.
Oh, that's awesome.
I mean, some people pray literally for a sign. Like, you literally got a sign. It's like popped up on the screen. Like, here you go. Here's what you
Well, God does have a sense of humor with me, and he knows that I am beyond stubborn, and I could literally get sign after sign, and then he'll like smack me in the face with something. And I just have to laugh because I'm like, oh yeah, you already told me that like 5 other times, but I just refuse to listen to it all those other times. So he continues to do it. And it's amazing because I can't deny it when I see it. But I should probably learn how to listen a little bit better.
Okay. All right. So I got to ask you, like, that point you mentioned, you know, you had moved to Arizona and you were in a job, you liked the job, but you didn't like the way your life was unfolding, panning out. You didn't have peace. Everything's kind of scattered. Was there someone or something in particular that like kind of pushed you to the tipping point where you were like, hey, things can't go on like they are. Things need to change in some way?
Wow. Honestly, I think it was me just coming to the realization that my life was completely out of control, and nobody else was going to save me. Like, I had to figure out, what am I going to do to fix this? And I think I just really went back to what I knew to be true, which was I needed a close relationship with God. I knew that all along. I just didn't listen and was being a little rebellious at the time. And so I actually don't feel like I had anyone. I felt like super alone, which maybe was the blessing, because that's why I leaned so strongly back into my faith, because I felt like it was the only thing I had. So yeah, at that point when I realized I needed to make some kind of drastic change, I didn't really have anyone. Although I will say I do have one really good friend that I've been friends with since elementary school, and she's kind of been telling me all along, like, you should probably stop doing that and do this instead. And I can remember the day I called her and I was like, yeah, you're right. I probably should change a few things in my life. So I have had that one friend that has kind of been a constant in my life. Yeah.
Hey, props to the friends for hanging in there, That's awesome.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was gonna say with that, do you have, so that shift's made in your heart, your soul, then what does it look like? Because we talk about this apprenticeship, that it's practical, right? We walk alongside people, and now you're doing that with other women.
Mm-hmm.
So in that time frame, who's walking alongside you? Did it take a group of people? Was it one in particular? Like what was that journey like to get from where you were to where you are today?
Well, that would definitely hands down be Kathy. She is amazing, as you guys know, and I'm very blessed to work super close to her. So I would say, just even in my interview, she's like, how do you feel about praying out loud? And I'm like, no, not doing it. And just her, walking me through like baby steps, like, okay, we're just going to start out our day every day praying together so that you get comfortable doing it. And then we would have meetings and a couple more people would come in, and just kind of helping me walk through those baby steps and encouraging me along the way, but never pressuring me, just to kind of let the Holy Spirit lead me. And she was a great encourager in that. And still today, I mean, now my circle's grown a little bit bigger and I've let a few more people in. I still keep it pretty small, but there definitely are a few other women that walk alongside me in life now. And it's been amazing. I've never really had that. So it's been pretty amazing.
I love that. I love how, because what you just hit on is the heart of, when Jesus goes, disciples who make disciples, and essentially you keep that going forever, right? Make disciples. And I think that is such a hands-on, practical, hey, you don't this spiritual rhythm, you don't have it, you don't feel like you can step into it. Mm-hmm. Let's just begin to practice together. Mm-hmm. And sooner or later, it's almost like your kid when they begin riding a bike.
Yep.
And you think they're never going to get it, and it's not long before they're cruising, and now they want to go to the park, and now they want to go, when you go for a walk, they want to ride the whole thing, and mm-hmm. then they figure out there's hills and they can't. So it's just that, it's that whole thing. I think it's so beautiful that Kathy walks alongside you, and now you walk alongside other women. And
I was just going to say that now there are women that are being brought into my life where I am just kind of telling them about my journey and kind of what I did, and helping them, like, okay, maybe just start with this one little thing and practice that, and like set an alarm on your phone to get that God time in, and then eventually you're not going to have to schedule it anymore because you're going to want to do it. It's going to be a part of your life. So it's definitely very neat to see the people that God's putting in my life now, and how they're actually learning from me, which is like, okay, I didn't expect that, but here we are.
Yeah. Which is back to Paul's language of follow me as I follow Christ, right? Mm-hmm. That ultimately we're leading them to Jesus. Because I think in this apprenticeship, what's been cool for me is looking at what made Jesus Jesus. Mm-hmm. And, prayer obviously was massive in Jesus's experience. The amount of times we're told he went away to a quiet place to pray, mm-hmm. And as apprentices going, that's something that should be a part of our life if we're going to imitate who Jesus is. And mm-hmm. so I just think, saying all that to say, I love how practical your journey has been, because I think so often church and religion and relationship is made so high and lofty, mm-hmm. versus it really is just practical steps that like, okay, taking notes, reading my Bible, learning how to pray. Like it's just these very simple moments we step into that then become a part of who we are. So that's really, really cool.
So I got a
Owen,
question.
go ahead.
Yeah. No. Sorry. I was going to ask you, Amanda. So what was it? I mean, first of all, Kathy, we love Kathy. She's amazing.
Yes, she
What
is.
was it about Kathy that allowed you to trust her with this kind of relationship that you had? So I feel like that's a bridge. A lot of us, like, even if we have a heart for, we want to help apprentice people. We want to be part of what God's doing in people's lives. And then we get stuck on the whole, like, connecting, like, okay, I have a heart for it. How do I actually bridge to someone else? And how do we do this together? And I'm wondering, like, thinking back to Kathy, what is it about her that lets you kind of, put your guard down, be honest about, like, hey, I don't pray out loud. This stuff scares me. And, and let her draw you in and walk with you. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. First of all, I don't really have to let my guard down. I am just that's my personality. I'm kind of all or nothing. So I think from the very first time that we got to know each other, I'm just like, this is who I am and this is what I do. And then I actually have an aunt, Kathy, that I am super, super close with. And Kathy Peach reminds me so much of her. And so I instantly felt comfortable with her because she reminded me so much of my aunt. Kathy is very, my son's interrupting me, I'm sorry. Kathy is very just loving and genuine and probably the most caring person that I've ever met in my life. So I think it's very easy to have a close relationship with her because of how much she truly cares. So that helped tremendously. And then I love learning. I ask a lot of questions. I've read all the books. I am like, give me everything. And so she never hesitated. Like, if I said, I want to know this, I want to know that, tell me a book to read, she would just give me all that I was asking for. And so that was super helpful and encouraging because I never felt like I was asking too many questions or, I don't know, overstepping boundaries, which I tend to do. So, yeah, she just made it very easy.
Yeah, that's beautiful. How does it feel now to be someone that you are pulling others along, and they're learning from you and you're caring for them?
I think it's still like unexpected when it happens. So a little bit about my journey is I recently, actually almost a year ago, September 30th, it'll be 1 year since I've had one drop of alcohol, not a glass of wine with dinner, not a beer to relax after work, nothing.
Wow.
And that all started as what I did, like this 90-day challenge to end out the last 90 days of the year just as strong as I could be. And during that challenge, it was to stop eating or drinking one food item, and I chose alcohol at that time. Well, fast forward, we're a year into it. Clearly, I went long beyond the 90 days. But I have been showing up to family functions and different get-togethers that everybody is having a really good time, and I am still having a good time without a drink in my hand. And I think seeing the impact that had on other people who it never even occurred to them that you could have fun and enjoy yourself without partaking in all the festivities. And so my sister-in-law, actually, she made the decision to stop drinking because she saw me in those situations. And when she came to me and told me that, I was like blown away by it because I wasn't like trying to get anyone to join me. I wasn't doing it for anything other than that's what I felt was right and I wanted to do. So her making that decision just because of her watching me walk through it was kind of huge for me. And it still like shocks me, catches me off guard a little bit. So it's very neat to watch, and I am not fully prepared when it does happen, but that's part of sharing your story and your journey. So I'm trying to be more prepared for it.
That's awesome. I think, again, it's back to the practical, right? It's down to, I took this step, it's a practical step I take, and how that plays out in the lives of others is we often don't see it coming, which is awesome. Yeah. Okay, so before we wrap up, I would love to, I know you have something coming up on October the 2nd, I believe. Yeah. So I'm just going to hand it to you. You can frame it up how you want to and encourage people to be there.
Okay, on Friday, October 2nd at 6 p.m., we are going to have Linger, a women's night of worship, which we threw together very last minute. It is the night before the day of prayer, so it fits in beautifully with what we'll be doing on Saturday. And it's really just a time to slow down, to just sit at the feet of Jesus, as we're learning about, and that we just learned about with the story of Martha and Mary. And it'll be a really special time. It'll be on the lawn underneath the trees. It might be a little chilly, so I'd say bring a sweater, but it should just be a really special time to worship together.
What time? That's great. How do people find you? Do they got to sign up? How do they?
There's not a sign up. Nope. You just show up on the lawn behind H1 at 6 p.m.
Cool.
That's fun. It's fun. Yeah. Well, Amanda, thank you so much for joining us on Midweek. We'll have to do it again for sure. Owen, as always good to see you. Talk about beans, I don't know. But no, seriously, good to hang out. And for the rest of you, you heard Amanda say, but just a reminder, save the date, October 3rd is a day of prayer and fasting for our church, specifically just leaning into, man, we have so much going on in the world around us and in our communities, and even within our church family, that we just want to come collectively as one voice and pray together, specifically for what's going on. So that's October 3rd. We'll get you more details over the next week and a half. Also this weekend, we are in-person services at 8:30 and 10:30. We do have kids ministry now at both of those. So if you've been waiting for kids ministry, they were back last weekend, and everything went well. We got to move into those spaces. And then also we still have our 10:30 on our online campus and 6 p.m. on the online campus. So we hope to see you for one of those services this weekend. We're excited as we move forward in the way of the apprentice. I hope you're encouraged today. I hope you walk away feeling like, man, I can take something from this and implement it into my life. And if you can, just know that hopefully whatever you implement is us following Jesus together. And so as we lean in, become more like Jesus, let's keep it real practical. So practical that I'm going to shut up and let you go so that you can have the rest of your night. So amazing. Glad to be with you. Love you guys. We'll talk real soon.